stuff, like research that I've done, I can try to find a place to scan it in. I got it all on printouts. I'll get you everything that I can.
Okay.
There's, what's that one?
The Comptroller's office,
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah. great place to start.
Yeah, so it's, I'll send that to you, but
That's
that's,
Trish, I have this. I'll give you.
I think
Oh,
Elaine has it
okay.
outside on the wall of your office too.
that's
This
like
is
a-
Heidi. This is Heidi, and I am in the same situation as Trish, although I've done some outside scholarly research, but I would appreciate anything you could send along to me as well, Chris. Thank you.
Okay, so here's what we'll do. There's, yeah.
Okay, good. I think that we would, I wouldn't want to rely on folks doing their own research on this. I mean, I'm hoping that we get some representation from professional, I mean,
Do I count as a professional?
no. I mean, I thought we were gonna have,
You mean again?
representation. Well, yeah, it's been a long time.
So we're gonna pay again to have someone come?
I don't know what your plan is. I'm just saying that I don't think this is something that needs to know.
I think we got to get on with
Did we pay
whether or not
out
we
the
want to
money?
do it or not do it, and vote it up or down, whether we want to go forward
I'll present the information that I have.
before we spend any
on
money.
at the next government ops.
Yeah.
And then how you guys want to proceed from there. But I intend to have a draft resolution, what that could potentially look like with the assistance of Mr. Palermo.
I mean, can we ensure everyone has the same information before? I mean, that's my point. I'm not looking to pay people to come in here and talk about it. I guess I'm looking for to make sure people are working off the same information. And-
Everything that I have will be
Available.
transmitted to everyone on the legislature. And that's why I wanted to run it through committee, is so that everyone's on the same page, from the committee, from government ops straight through ways and means to the full legislature. Everything that I do will be done transparently.
So whatever information you're gonna give to Heidi and Trish, you'll just forward to the legislature. Go from there.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't think you have made any secret of the fact that you are certainly in favor of an elected executive. And that's one of the reasons that people, counties pursue a charter. But I would be interested in, the pros and cons of the charter, the work that's done, whether it's a charter commission or a body that this county puts together.
So without getting too deep into the weeds now, that is absolutely what I intend to talk about. The charter, although you're absolutely correct, I do believe that it's high time that we have an elected representative. But having said that, the charter they're not mutually exclusive. You can address in the charter, you can address elected executive. You can go the way of like Tompkins County, which has a charter with an appointed executive. Also, for example, redistricting. Don't have to address redistricting in the charter, but you can. It would be I think it's advantageous for us to address the redistricting in the charter. So every 10 years, we will make sure that our districts are in compliance. So
It
I'm
will
just gonna.
naturally happen without any additional work, is that what you're saying? Because we're talking about redistricting now with the census data we have.
Yeah, but so again, like the charter can address that, but you don't need a charter to address redistricting.
Right.
So all this stuff, and I'm gonna try to do it as brief as possible. Give a 22,000 foot overview, and you'll be able to see just the basics. So just real quick, because I know people lose interest quickly. I've been talking about it for years, and people's eyes sort of roll back in their heads, and here he goes again. But I'm going to talk briefly about history, the different avenues that you could take, the sort of I call them the cookie cutters that the state provides for us. That's the easiest way. It's almost as if a fill in the blank, and then so there's a long form and a short form, and again, without getting too deep into it, I'll give it as brief as possible, but with as much detail as possible in a short period of time.
Just lastly, I mean,
I
no,
love it. Go
do
for
you
it.
believe that, this, even if we were to pursue a charter, it's not an overnight process.
It
There's
could
got,
be, I think it could be. I think it depends on how you want, well, no, that's not true.
there's a
I
vote.
think it could
yes.
be, it's more expeditious than most people think. Again, as I referenced briefly, the form, so when the state gave the ability for counties to establish a home rule government, they came forward with different sort of templates, and Chris Steffen.
Alternative county, yep.
And they had templates, so I think if you wanted to do the template in a short form, you could address this very quickly and get it done very quickly. But if you wanted to go the long form, and that's, you get it, then you sort of go into you address every sort of facet of government that, you know, you're interested in doing so. So that could be potentially a long form. It's everything is up to us, however we want to do it. It's our own little July 4th. We get to write our own
But
constitution.
there is some public education because it ultimately has to be voted on by the public in this county.
There has to
correct?
be a referendum at the end of it.
And
yes.
some education about what it is and why
Well,
we're doing it. and
I
how
think
it
that
reads.
it's imperative that we provide the education to the public, because that would be their form of government, so they can make a informed decision on their vote. So, yeah, I mean, I wholeheartedly agree that that should be one of the aspects that we factor into the process. But we could, you know, again, it's all how we want to make it. We could expedite the process, but I personally think, just my own opinion, I think the best course of action, so everyone can, you know, we're not moving overnight and we can have time to process all the information. I think that a good goal is 2023. So when the new districts are created and because as you guys all know, we staggered the districts or the terms in order for the times to come up, the terms to come up. So everyone will be up in 2023. So I think that, just again, in my own opinion, I think 2023 is a great time that we could have an election for an executive as well as the new districts.
So I have a question from Timmy, but before we hear that, I think that it would be good for us to receive that information from Chris that he's going to send us as the legislature. And then you can also respond to him and ask him to address, you know, certain things in his presentation of questions that you have, you think are important. That way he might have his guidance, and kind of go from there. Chris, is that cool?
It works for me. Again, I'm gonna rely heavily on the county attorney. And I've reached out to Syracuse University. As you guys know, I had some health issues, so I've been sort of outside the game for a little bit. But so we have local universities as a resource. I have multiple different charters as an example, potential examples. So yeah, I'll do my best to answer questions, but at the end of the day, you guys, I'm just a parole officer, so I'll do my best.
Here we go.
I thought he said he was a professional.
Yeah. Tim.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for letting me speak. Being involved in government for as long as I have, I've noticed different governmental forms. And this particular form escapes me. I mean, you know, when it comes to economic development and trying to get a meeting. I mean, I've had Republicans leave this chamber, I've had Democrats leave the chamber, and it still has dysfunction. So hopefully, I think Mr. Peters is on the right path to maybe clarify who's in charge and how much juice do we have. I know that whenever I've dealt with people who want to invest millions of dollars in my community, they want to talk to somebody who's got can do water and sewer, can do sanitation, you know, the whole works when it comes to economic development. So we need in these times to have somebody look at those things. And I mean, it's hard to even get reappointed up here. So I hope that Mr. Petrus would bring that forward and because it is, whether or not you do the whole thing, there's parts of this thing that need to be fixed.
I have a question from Aileen, comment.
I just have a comment. I just want to prepare you, you get an elected executive and you talk about the juice. You're gonna staff up. No one's coming to this county unless you staff up.
Well, we're spending a lot of money looking at other forms, are we not? Financial.
Well, I think she's referring to the office of the executive.
Yeah.
Quite good, Mr. Chairman.
We don't
Yeah,
want
I
to
think
grow
she's talking
government.
about the
right?
office of-
Right.
This will
If
grow
you don't wanna grow
government,
government.
exactly. This
Right.
will-
Okay, right. And here's the thing, there's always responses. We can have a ton of this.
All right, I'll shut up. I promise.
I know. I think the point is well taken that if we were to go to the charter route, which included an executive, that we would eventually have an office of the executive, the county executive, which would potentially lead to their own county staff, similar to how Onondaga has, which could cost.
Well, it's $150 million, I'm sorry. It's just, I promise.
It's $150 million.
And you need that, the executive needs staff.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Well,
For sure.
Sarcasm, yeah.
See, this is where we're going. Okay, so we're gonna, Right.
We're a lot of money
going
on
to move on
administrators.
for that note, and tackle that next month. It's going to be a lively one. All right. I'll bring the popcorn.
I'm sure you'll all come here and read it. Study.
Yes. Okay, so, again, before we get into committee reports, we just got done with the charter. I do have 3 more very quick things just to go over. The veterans, resolution that we passed last month appointing Lindsay Wilkinson, temporary interim director of the vet's office. We are going to go and do the county process of trying to hire our next director for that office. And she could very well be included if she applies, but in fairness to our typical hiring process, we have to go through the candidate pool. So there's a veterans hiring committee that we've established and includes myself as government operations chair, Aileen as administrator. Let's see here, Jim Orman is on the Veterans Advisory Board as well as has been a veteran. He's on it. Mr. Strong is also on it as a legislator and is also served in the military. And then Lisa Leopold is on it for HR. I believe the next steps in the process are advertising for that position. And we'll review the resumes, just like we have for all of our other county departments. Whittle it down, bring something forward to the full legislature for their approval. Anyone has questions? Tim?
In regards to veterans, I know that we have a little plaque statue of the D-Day guys out front, and we never honored those gentlemen this year. I'd like this to be able to have some kind of nod to their Normandy beach invasion. And Memorial Day, we didn't have any type of thing. The city did have a flower thing on it in our next door. Veterans
Memorial.
Park. So somehow we should coordinate with our veterans department to make sure that we recognize our on the day. So appreciate it.
That's a good point. All right. Any other questions about the Veterans Hiring Committee? All right, thank you for that. Next up is just an update on the IT Hiring Committee. We have reviewed candidates. We have whittled down the list and we are continuing to move forward with that. Ultimately, we will be bringing forward a candidate for the legislature to meet and greet, have discussion. If anyone has any questions on that, the legislators that are on the committee include myself, Mark Strong, Tricia Kerr, and Aileen. Feel free to reach out to them. If you have any questions, comments, on where we are in the process. I'm confident that they all have been pretty active and involved and have done well and could answer any of the questions that you have. So, yeah, but may see something at our special legislative meeting coming up on 16th to have further discussion on our candidates. So I'll just kind of be on the lookout for that. Last but not least, on our agenda, I saw that under the county clerk, there was discussion about the need to have our historian's office open and kind of get their space back. That information is well taken. It's something that we've discussed before and are in ongoing conversations with. It's not appropriate to have that discussion tonight at committee, only because the committee doesn't do anything for that. It can't open up a building or an office. Well, what I have suggested before is that conversations continue with our chairwoman / administrator, Aileen, get them addressed. I don't know who ultimately has the final authority on that in terms of when things go back to normal over there, but I do believe it is Aileen. Chris, can you clarify?
Under her emergency powers, any emergency order that she files is clearly controlling. Without a filed emergency order, then it's, I would say it's the chair's discretion unless that's overridden by the legislature.
Okay.
So it depends on which approach you take. If it's an emergency order, you get absolute. The exception of the governor saying it's not.
I'm sorry. I
Can't hear you.
Yeah, I got a voice problem, I'm sorry. If the chair were to issue an emergency order, that, that's controlling. If it's done outside of the emergency powers, or is it an administrative decision by the person that's running the day-to-day operations of the building, that would be something that the legislature could override should they find it necessary.
Okay, thank you.
So ultimately, I think that we're not close to that. Right now, I think there's some work and discussions that have to take place between the historian's office, Sue, and the chairwoman on those, and kind of go from there. And ultimately, like I said, this committee doesn't have that decision until it gets to a higher level. So.
The governor was on the radio saying our infection rate is like almost gone. All things should go back to normal.
Mhm.
quickly. Is that what you're getting from the governor's office? Madam Chair?
I'm getting the same thing you're getting.
Huh?
I'm getting the same thing you're getting.
That it's gonna open up.
Oh, I think he's made an announcement, right? When, as soon as we reach the threshold. So they what's the saying? Dropping restrictions.
I don't know, but I'd like to see us open up.
I think we all, just as long as it's safe and done in kind of a manner that is approved and can kind of go from there. So, yeah, with that said, we will move on to the committee discussion. First up, we have Cheryl and Kate. I don't believe they are on. They don't have any resolutions on tonight. Mary, with all of my department heads that report to this committee, I only ask them to show up if they have something pressing, or they have a resolution to present, so. All right, thanks. So does anyone have any questions for the Board of Elections that we can pass along? Seeing none. All right, great.
I do. I'll take care of asking, but I figure I'll bring you up to speed. It kind of relates to what Chris's conversation was. I need to know the deadlines. Because if we're going to get something on, we got to have ballot propositions for a lot of these redistricting for charter. And we do need to find out those dates. I think they're coming very quickly.
The census data has not, as I understand,
Released.
yeah, it's not out yet, so I think we need that.
With all the election stuff pushed up, I want to be certain.
Right.
that we
Oh,
know
yeah,
What our
because of the-
deadlines are and how much time
Yeah.
we have,
Right.
just to inform the board, Are you working in a frame that's too short and you want to kick it to the next one? Or is it something you're going to scramble to try to get done, now? So I think that's important information, but I'll find that out.
Right, yeah, okay, great, and you can report back next month on that.
Is early voting, when does it start for the primaries?
10 days before the 22nd.
Okay. Hey.
Yeah, early voting begins this Saturday and for the primary, and it's all going to be conducted at our offices. All of the primaries are so scattered around the county that it was ridiculous to open multiple sites. Most of them are relatively small primaries, a town primary for highway superintendent or a town position. There are two primaries for legislative seats in District 3 and the City Hall district in the city. So all of the early voting is taking place at City Hall or at our offices. It's only at our offices for all of those races. The schedule is on our website. All of the sample ballots are on our website. We expect relatively low participation. They are all Republican primaries. There are no Democratic primaries. So if you're asked about that, it's all Republican primaries, every one of them in the county. As far as your previous conversation about getting things on the ballot, the normal deadline is 40 days prior to the election in order to have a question put before the voters. So if you want to keep that in mind on anything you're looking toward putting on a ballot in November, work back 40 days from that, and that's the deadline for notifying us of any issue that's going to be on the ballot.
Is that a reasonable deadline for you, Katie? Or
It's not, it's not really a problem for us in a local election year. Other years, it would be more of a problem. This year, everybody's nominated, the primaries will be over with. This is really kind of a new experience for us. We usually have September primaries. We're going to be relatively quiet as far as the summertime is concerned in our office. So any activity or any help that we can be as far as looking at ballot issues, we'd be glad to help.
Well, for potential redistricting, right? You've got legislators that are going to be running for the 2024 term, all of them, right? So that'll be
they would take office and it'll be the election in 23 that they would be.
in order for them to run for an office, you need to know what district they're going to be running in.
Right.
In order to do that, we would have to have something on the ballot in 2022,
Right.
which means we've got until mid-September of 2022 to have redistricting complete. To have it either pass or fail so that we know in 23 who's running where and how many seats you've got.
Correct.
So we have just over a year.
Right.
That was the.
What about the legislative size? Is that part
Yeah,
of it?
see that's where you run up against it. If you can't just go by the date to set to have people nominated for office. If you're going to change the size of the legislature, that would have to be on a previous ballot.
Correct. Or else you can't have who's running for what. I mean, you
Right.
run victory and find out later it picks up Conquest.
Right.
The person that ran for 3 is from Conquest. It just doesn't work.
So are you saying you have to determine the size of the legislature prior to drawing the new districts?
We won't get, we
thing.
won't even be able to look at a size or any decisions regarding districts until we get census data, which we expect to be, as far as the local numbers, we're kind of figuring that it'll be August before we'll get our first look at census numbers. After you get the census numbers, you can divide, pick out a number that works as far as dividing up the seats. It may be that 15 is a logical number. It may be that 13 comes out even. It may be that 11 is a better number. You know, it's going to depend on what that number of total, the total number, and then where the population has changed. I mean, I think we all know that since the last time it was drawn was over 30 years ago, population has moved away from the city of Auburn and out to the donut towns. What configuration is going to end up with the districts being able to be drawn within 5% difference from the largest district to the smallest is going to be a chore for mathematicians and politicians, obviously.
Get away from weighted voting. This is all in anticipation of having one person, one vote.
Right.
That is the purpose. And our districts right now, as everybody knows, are way out of whack when you have, districts weighted almost 2 to 1.
They're not mutually exclusive, though. You can still weight the votes.
You could.
That's what we do now.
Right.
That, I guess I was thinking that wasn't the idea that.
You've got the population, what is it, 110%? What are the numbers? You can't have more than, or is that for splitting towns? If you've got more.
10,000 votes. It's not legal to split any town in Cayuga County. There's no town that's at 10,000 population. You cannot split a town for legislative races.
Okay.
And Katie, in order to have the districts be even, I recall some kind of 1,700 number, or it can't be, or maybe it's a percentage. The districts have to be close in size.
It's a percentage. You have to, the goal, the biggest difference that has been found legal across the state was a 12% difference between the largest district and the smallest. The goal is supposedly 5. That there wouldn't be more than a 5% difference in the number of people represented from one district to another.
Before we continue on with this discussion, and I think it's just important to point out for the legislature too, that we're almost talking about 3 different ideas here. So one is kind of a charter, which can, may or may not include redistricting. The second idea is actually the redistricting and how we draw the districts. The third is apportionment, which is how many people are in those districts and how many districts we actually have. I mean, is that the way I understand it?
That's correct.
Okay, so, and some of them overlap each other. It gets kind of convoluted the more you get down into the weeds. But, just so we're clear that it's all kind of part of the discussion, and sometimes you have questions that overlap with redistricting and what it would look like, and how many people would be in each district, and how many legislators we would have representing how many people we would have in each of those districts. So just kind of keep that, in the purview, is that it's a kind of a large topic. It spans 3 different categories. With that said, I have another question from Mr. Peters.
No. Oh, I did? Oh, I was gonna ask Katie about the Supreme, because there's a Supreme Court ruling, but I don't think it's relevant. We'll just wait to see the data and figure out from there.
Okay, and then I had Chris, I don't know if you wanted to ask a question. I saw your
No,
hand.
I'll have an offline conversation with Cheryl.
Great, and then I have Tim.
I mean, this is all very important stuff, but I'm more concerned about how's your golf game?
I think it depends on the day, Tim. It's like everybody else.
I look forward to seeing it. Thank you.
Okay.
That could be a challenge.
Okay, so with that said, Kate, I'm sorry I didn't see you on there beforehand. We don't have an active thing up on the screen of everyone that's in digitally with us. So if anyone has any other questions for Kate or elections, or if Kate, you have anything for us, go with that?
No, I think once we get past this primary, we'll have some downtime to deal with some of these larger issues that are pending. And I think we expect that we'd probably be involved in at least preparing materials for you folks for some of the upcoming decisions.
Thanks, Kate. We will move on. Next up is going to be Sheila Smith for the ledge. I believe Amanda is on.
I am on. Nothing really new. Sheila sent in the report. Just a reminder, special ledge meeting next Wednesday at 5:30 on the American Rescue Plan. And that is it. If anyone has any questions,
What time is that meeting?
it's going to be at 5:30.
Next Wednesday.
How about 6? Since it's a special ledge, maybe people getting out of work, 6 would be a better time.
It's already been set.
Does it been
Yeah,
added?
that's the advertised time.
Yeah.
Any questions for our clerk's office? Seeing none. Okay, thank you, Amanda.
Welcome.
Mr. Palermo, County Attorney's Office.
Nothing to report this one. Mr. Chairman, it's been fairly routine, reviewing resolutions, prosecuting juvenile delinquents, handling FOIL requests, approving contracts, various litigation. Usually,
Nobody's suing us?
everybody's suing us.
Oh. Thank you.
Okay, so.
Eastern Shore is busy.
So what we're actually going to do is we have a resolution GO2 from the county's attorney's office. We are going to move that and we'll move back to clerk of the ledge GO1, which is an Cayuga County policy. So we'll kind of backtrack after we get done with this one. So GO2 is adopting local law number blank for the year 2021, a local law establishing the Cayuga County Ethics Code and the Board of Ethics for the County of Cayuga. I will take a motion for that. Moved by Trish, seconded by
I'll second.
Mr. Petras. Any discussion on this? Mr. Lattimore.
Being a member of that board, I've asked several questions. Rich has been working with Mr. Batman in regards to this, but I just want to make sure that our ethics board does not limit good potential people from serving on the boards. So I think that's been resolved, but
Say it again.
sometimes people in business don't want to serve because it's so arduous. You know, what's your background, you know, all the different things, and it excludes some people. So I hope that our ethics board and ethics rules, you know, are fair in regards to having everybody in the county serve and not being exclusive to retired people or people not in business.
So the appointment process is the initial 5 members are appointed by the legislature, consists of 2 recommendations made by the chair, to the chair by the majority leader, 2 recommendations made to the chair by the minority leader, and a recommendation by the chair who is not designated to either the majority or minority party. That's exactly what it says. So
Thank you.
the minorities get
Thank you.
2 recommendations. It's an attempt to balance it politically.
I just wanted to state that I want everybody to serve on these boards, whether it's this particular ledge or, you know, power agency or any other volunteer agency that we have, that they're able to serve. I don't want to be restrictive.
So any other comments, questions on GO2? Tricia Kerr.
Just a real quick comment, I was on the committee as well, and to Tim's point, we had some members of the public on that committee. They were really great. It was active participation in the county attorney's office. Brittany and Reg and Chris were great to work with through this process. It was really a lot of back and forth and iterative stuff to get to this. So we had great participation from the public and support from county staff, which was nice.
Yep, wonderful. Just one example of that is when we sit in these chairs on the ledge, I know that a previous legislator was also employed at the college. And we do a lot of business with the college, but he was able to raise his hand and say that he had an issue on voting on that particular budget. And as long as he disclosed it, it wasn't illegal for him to vote on it.
Right.
He always abstained from voting, but the fact that he was employed with one of our subdivisions, soil and water, anything else that we might fund.
Mhm.
I want to be able to have people elected to this board and be able to say, I have a relationship with that. It's a small town, it's a small county, and we all have relationships with different individuals.
And I think this policy captures that, you know, to be able to have that duality where you are working at a certain place and you're still able to serve in the legislature as long as you disclose that potential conflict. You know, and kind of keep it moving. I know I do it myself with Cayuga Counseling. I work there as a therapist, so when we have a contract that comes before us through HHS or otherwise, I usually abstain there. So, and there's other members of the legislature that have their own extension. So, you know, we work through it, it's a case by case basis, and ultimately we can always ask our county attorney for further clarification. And part of this, we'll have an ethics board that can provide guidance as well. Any other questions about GO2? All right, if none, I'll take a vote. All in favor? Aye. Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
I think that was a in favor. Heidi, you were in favor, right?
Yes, that was an aye.
All opposed? All right, carried. Thank you so much. And Amanda, we'll move back to GO1 if you are still with us. I believe you are. You can take notes.
Yes.
I'll have a motion and a second for GO1.
I'll move it.
Moved by Mr. Petrus, seconded by Mr. Strong. Any discussion on GO1? Trish?
I just wanted to, I guess, question or, I didn't see specifically, so for instance, with methadone being on this list of drugs that would be tested for, is that because methadone is prescribed for heroin treatment, addiction treatment, would that automatically disqualify someone from being hired here at the county if there was legitimate purpose for somebody being on that as part of a rehab program? I wasn't sure how this plays out.
That would be a good question for HR. Lisa is with us. If you want to just come over here, they might not be able to hear you.
Yeah, no problem. There are legitimate reasons for any of the items that are on the panel that we deal with. That's where the medical review officer that is from the laboratory that we deal with would be in touch with the individual. What happens is that they send me a confirmation saying that there is a reason for the individual who we got the sample from needs to contact the medical review officer. And at that point in time, they would have to prove that they have a prescription for that. Same is true for somebody who'd be on oxycodone because of pain or any other drug that could also have a test false positive. So that's why they have an independent third-party medical director who does that as part of the laboratory chain of evidence and checking for all possibilities like that with methadone and other drugs.
Did that answer?
Yeah, it's a great answer. I do have quick follow-up question.
Yeah, go for it.
If that's okay. I know that with synthetics, the drugs are constantly changing and we're always trying to catch up with trying to find ways to test for whatever the latest is. And I just wanted to, this isn't my wheelhouse, so I don't know the different classifications, but I just want to make sure the list is relatively current with those synthetics that we can test for.
It is there's usually 5 or 10 panel. And we use the 10 panel. With removing that one item, making it a 9 panel, which I'm working with. If this resolution goes through, I've already done some research about how we can have that removed from even the report that we get for drug testing, either having it where we'll use the same items that the legal department uses of Adobe Acrobat to block it out, or have the laboratory actually remove the test results of marijuana from the drug test, because you can't, the way that the chemical testing is done, you can't not do a 10 panel. It's not like you can just remove that one. So it would just be either removed from the lab results that we receive automatically, or since I'm the person that receives the drug testing results, I'd be doing the blockout before it goes into somebody's medical file to make sure for confidentiality. So I'm working with them right now. Although there's 2 groups that may still have to be tested.
Maybe 3, you know, occurred to me today, probation. They also carry.
Firearms, that's right. They
So I
still
think-
get our ATF.
I think we may need to include them in
That,
that
yeah.
group too.
Because there's federal laws that override the recreational marijuana being ATF for firearms, which we were talking about right before the meeting about the police department, and which will also include probation. And then for highway with DOT, federal law. They're the ones that still have to do the 10 panel. And they actually, with the DOT, they have to be granted.
That point then, and I have questions from Elaine and Tim, but to that point, do we need to make an amendment to this resolution in order to have those carve outs for those specifics, or was that?
You can handle it through internal policies in the department.
Right, and that's what we're gonna be doing. That's what we're
That's
doing.
good. Okay,
That's
so,
what we're
okay, so there will be, if we pass this, then our county staff can kind of curtail it to where it needs to be carve outs for people that carry firearms, employees, I should say, county employees that carry firearms and other restrictions. That's probably a good idea to have.
Right, which
Yeah.
we're working on that with Jenica King, Chris and Rich, as well as the department heads that have those federal laws that override the
state.
state recreational capabilities,
Okay, great.
just because of safety rules.
So Elaine first and then Tim.
I was just curious as a follow-up to Trish's question where she picked up on the methadone. There's been a huge talk about Suboxone, buprenorphine. Is that referenced here at all? I mean, that is certainly an MOUD treatment for people for harm reduction. That should be updated in this, or
As,
covered it?
and as an added thing to test for, or something that would be checked by the medical review officer.
I guess this, no, I guess I was asking the question. I would assume if someone's positive for buprenorphine and there is a medical prescription for it and they're coming off, an addiction to opioids, then this would be also medically screened appropriate then,
Mhm.
same deal.
Yeah, we've had people who had to take like small dosages of oxycodone in my past jobs too, where they have a
It's
prescription.
all about
for
the
it.
medical review.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's all
okay.
about the medical review and being able to prove it. And then it's not like even something that's like 2 years expired that you're showing us or showing the medical review officer that information. So it's always a third party, not us in HR that would be doing that. We would just contacting the person saying, hey, you need to call the medical review officer.
And
Here's
go
the,
over the information.
here's the
Okay.
information that you need when you call them.
Tim?
Growing up in the 60s, so LSD, is that one of them?
Yep.
Anyways. to maintain safety in like highway and people who are using machinery. Are we using the screens to make sure that, I mean, you know, Budweiser was always a favorite of mine. I mean, if somebody showed up with beer on their breath and they're gonna operate some kind of power equipment, that person is tested? How do we?
Well, right now, only 2 of our unions have a drug testing piece to their CBA. CSEA does not. That's something that will be coming up in the contract, which will be under discussion. But one of the things that I was talking to Aileen about is having training for all the supervisors regarding any type of impairment of being, because there's sort of a way that you have to do a checklist on impairment. You can't just say, it sounds like they, you know, they look like they're drunk. But in reality, they could be a diabetic who's having an episode with their insulin. So it's important to be able to, for supervisors, to be able to notice if somebody is impaired. We had somebody who was impaired, they probably calling out if we don't have all the policies in place to be able to deal with that situation, if it's not part of the CBA to handle that. But the DOT people also get randomly tested too.
But I mean, if cannabis has been able to treat, let's say rheumatoid arthritis or something like that, is that gonna be allowed or?
Well, there's medical marijuana cards, and depending upon what department it is, some of them you're not even allowed to have medical marijuana cards if you are in certain groups that are affected by federal law.
Right.
Which still is DOT and ATF people, firearms and people who drive trucks.
I think this is aimed at, you know.
Well, I'm
comment, wait, I think this is aimed at county common positions that we have. So you go home at night, you want to apply for a position at a county, drink a beer while you do that, smoke a J while you do that, apply, you get hired, we screen you. At that point, as long as you're not high or drunk, you can come work for the county. Same thing as when you show up for work the next day. If you haven't had any beer before that, you haven't smoked anything before that, or otherwise, you're welcome to work here. I think that policy is just aligning the two uses to be able to get more people in the door, kind of be more flexible with what people are allowed to do with their recreational time. Any other questions about GO1? Seeing none, I'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All- Carried. All right, great. Any other questions? Well, any other questions for Chris before we move on? Let's switch it around here, but. Thank you, Chris. Attorney's office. Next up is Sue Dwyer, DMV.
I do want to talk a little bit about the historian's office. I'm very,
I understand your concerns. Sue.
Thank you.
You mentioned it last month, and I think that every legislator thinks that it's an important task to get them back in. But
Yeah.
it's not an oversight committee discussion right now. It has to be handled administratively through that avenue before it comes to this, because there's nothing that the oversight committee can do at this current time.
So if I could, I just wanted to say, I mean, that my, I'm waiting to hear back some information from Ray. I apologize long, that's not our intention. Especially moving back. I actually just sent him a note that he goes, I don't know if the OTP. So, we'll find that out and.
I do feel that I I should be able to express my frustration a little bit.
So,
This is the
so
whole
wait, I'm
thing.
sorry, you have been able to express your frustration. We
Not
talked about
today.
it last month. You also included it in your report. I'm telling you that this is not the appropriate environment. You can talk about anything other than that.
Okay,
All right,
I'll
thank you.
talk about since day one, how I have been flexible. If
Yes,
there has been a problem here with COVID and you needed a space, I gave it. I have rearranged people, I have rearranged rooms, I have done everything. And I take my responsibility as oversight of the historian's office very seriously. Nobody else in this room or in this county has been displaced for a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, going on 8 months now, not being able to do their job.
yes.
And I have every right to be frustrated
You-
because I have met with Ray, I have tried my best to compromise.
I verified with Kim, his manager, and she said if you're definitely interested, she'll put your name down and you can just pay at the door.
Okay.
What is that?
That,
That was just
that was
someone's microphone not off.
But I will say that
So, wait, can I just stop you there? Your discussion on this is not germane at this point in time. Your frustration is noted. And
just only, that is disrespectful to me. I'm very sorry, okay? I don't think that you're saying that I should not be talking in this meeting. I'm sorry. I think I have every right to give you an update, an honest update of what's going on. There are 6 floors in this building, okay? There can't be a dedicated space somewhere. There was a client that was upstairs all day today in this building, okay? Why can't the DSS people be chaperoned 1 floor up, 1 person at a time in 1 room somewhere in this building? That's my question, okay?
that's a good question, Sue. And I'm
6
saying,
floors
what I'm
of rooms.
suggesting to you
Okay,
is that nobody on the committee can answer that question or the other questions that you may have.
it's 8 months.
I also understand that. I've been with you for those 8 months. And if you remember, Sue, I told you that I was in favor of you reopening that historian space with the historian's office in it. So I'm behind you in this. You bring it to committee, I tell you, it's not appropriate for right now. It will be worked on. Aileen has already given us an update that she was getting behind. It's being worked on. It's not, hasn't fallen off the table. It's not that people haven't listened to you.
It is
It's-
silent. Nobody is talking about it, okay? And no other department has done what we've done.
Okay.
And that is why I am here today.
Mhm.
And the public isn't happy. I want to serve the public. That is my job, okay? 4 departments. It's working great in 3. I can't even do it in 1. And Ruth, I feel that she should be heard too. I didn't bring the staff here. I brought our county historian here. We have to have a county historian. It's a state law. And she has not been able to do her job. And she has not been able to serve the public.
Okay.
I think that's our job.
Thanks. Timmy?
Mr. Chairman, I have one question to ask. The space that is being occupied by DSS, how many people are they, how many clients are they handling a day?
Not a lot. Okay,
Can we find that out, to see whether or not that space is
That is-
over?
I have asked for these numbers.
Whether or not
That
a
is
smaller
something
space can be
that we can research and get back to.
and
you.
move
Okay, yes.
those clients?
But we personally know because the staff is there. We personally know because the guards are there. We
So-
know those numbers.
So I'm going to ask one more time, please. We're not having a further discussion on this. You are more than welcome to give the rest of your report on the DMV records retention, everything else besides the historian's office, because it is an active work in progress, and it's something that is.
That is my
We'll get
focus.
handled.
That is my focus right now. That's
Okay,
all.
then we'll move on.
Can
I ask a
question?
No,
I can't ask a question.
No, you're not
Are
being
you
recognized. I'm the chair of this committee. You are not being recognized at this point in
And
time.
I'm
I'm
a
sorry.
taxpayer and a constituent of the county. In addition to being an employee of this county.
Mr. Foley's correct, unless the chair recognizes anybody.
Thank you to the county attorney for clarifying that. Moving on. Paul Borman, are you with us?
I am here.
Right, we will take your report tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My report is on the screen. If anybody has any questions, I know you've got a lot going on tonight, so I'll try to give you some time back if you don't have any questions.
One question.
Yes, sir.
That's gonna go for it.
Paul, I had a young man come in from, he's doing he's in college at RIT, and he was interested in doing some, I know that Trish, what are we looking for, Trish? And you were at one time, what were you? That you got into business? Huh?
An intern.
An intern. Do we have any kind of intern program for the IT department? Or I know that we do bring in people and we train them. And then they get enough training and then they leave us after we spend the money with them. Do we have anything to handle? Maybe, I mean, this particular kid or gentleman, I think he gets like 6 college credit hours if he hangs with some of our IT people. Do we have any program like that?
We don't have a formal program, Mr. Lattimore, but I'm always willing to mentor or work with folks on an internship basis. So I'd be happy to work with human resources to work through that. Absolutely. We welcome it. We could use the resources. And just for clarification, we don't really train people and they leave. What happens is they get opportunities that are better paying typically. But typically we're bringing on people that are already trained and experienced. They just are learning the county systems, and that's really all they're learning. So they already have the skills from a tech point of view. But that said, we're always willing to take on interns and could really use the help, honestly. So we'd love to have them.
Where do I apply, Paul?
What's that?
Where do I apply?
Oh, you are first on my list. Perfect. So yeah, just give me your resume and I'll send me your CV and I'll be glad to. We'll figure it out. You know.
I don't think that GD qualifies you.
Hey, Paul, I just have a quick question. So, I received questions from members of the ledge, on random things about IT sometimes. And one of them is, can you just describe the configuration of our current IT department in terms of how you have allocated different resources, different departments? I know that we have, for instance, a person in HHS that's kind of dedicated to that. Well, it's out at PSB because the jail is kind of a 24-hour proposition for IT and user. So Paul has moved people, or at least a person out there. Can you just kind of describe that setup that we have?
Sure. So what we have is we have folks in different roles, and they based on their experience and the skills that they have. We have a dedicated person that's working on servers. We have a dedicated person that works on our networking gear because they have very specific skills. And so they are universal across the board for the entire county. They do often go to different facilities, but those folks are kind of, those have a specific shared skill set. And then what we do for our, what I call our customer service team, those folks are tied to a specific set of departments. And we have one gentleman on the team, for example, that covers the health department. He covers the mental health area, and he also covers Board of Elections and several other departments, including the DA's office. He typically, he has an office at the mental health building, and that's where he resides out of, but he does travel around the county to different facilities. We also have at the public safety building, we've had one person there for quite some time who had to cover both custody road patrol in the sheriff's office and also 911. And we've found that individual needed some help. So what we're doing is we've kind of split the time, and we have one of our folks that was at the county office building who was a backup to our DSS person, as well as a support person for all county systems. And he is spending time with the sheriff's office, road patrol, and jail. And they have some specific projects going on this year. And then we have a person that's covering the county office building staff, and also some other facilities like highway and veterans, and some of the other outlying groups that are not necessarily at the county. And employment and training is also covered by a mix of folks, but primarily by the person that covers the health department and the mental health facility. So I do have them split, and we do adjust here periodically based on workload and skills and talent, and also personalities and how they get along with the departments. So I welcome any feedback from department heads and staff about that, of course, and we adjust periodically.
Okay, great, thank you.
Sure, happy to share that with you at any time. And I do update their job descriptions periodically to indicate, to show that that's what their responsibilities are. So they all receive it in writing. So there's no question about who they're serving.
Right. Any other questions about IT for Paul? Hearing none. Thank you, Paul. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Have a good night.
Last up is Lindsay Wilkinson, Veterans Interim Director for the Veterans Office. They don't have anything.
I don't see her on, Ryan.
Anything else? So, and just to clarify, like I said earlier, I don't often require them to come to committee unless they have something to present or something to update us on. So, any other business that comes before government operations tonight from the committee?
I would like to make a comment. This is Tucker. Of all the dead horses that this committee beats over and over and over again, and all the unnecessary chatter that happens, we have a department head that comes to the committee and they get shut down and told that their issue is not worth discussing. I hope Sue comes to the full ledge meeting and gets privilege of the floor where she can speak in a public forum about her issues, because I'll guarantee you not the full ledge knows about this issue. I don't know why it's being pushed aside. So I hope I hear about it at the ledge meeting. Thank you.
Yes, yeah. Aileen has a comment.
So I don't know. Committee, Mr. Cole, so it's up to you however you do this. But Tucker, I just want to assure you that this is not being pushed aside on purpose. This is an example of the loose ends that exist in the county with over 750 employees and 31 reports. There are things that I just cannot put my brain to, coordinate schedules and work out.
I completely understand that, Aileen, but that was a very rude way for the chairperson of this committee to handle it.
And I have to say, I do agree with you, and I have apologized to Sue, and I know that they're deeply affected. I know people in my own family who want to get into the historian's office. I know that this is very tough on them, and they've been great in letting us utilize that space. OTDA dictates who can be seen face to face. I'm getting on some information from Ray. I'm assuming if the governor lifts all restrictions, that also means for OTDA. I assume, but I've got to find those answers out. But in the meantime, I have offered a shared space, not at the same time, of course, because of confidentiality issues. she would like an all or nothing answer on this. I don't blame her. She's been very patient. So I just want to let you know, I'm doing the best I can with this. I definitely want to come to a resolution. I'm not trying to box anybody out, but this is an example of one thing. I think if you queried the county to say, what are some things you're waiting on from the chair? I think you're gonna get a list. So, I mean, I'm just one person, and it's been difficult. It's not, and I personally like to do an A+ job. And it's been very frustrating for me as well to not be able to fulfill all the duties. And Chris Blair was nodding his head, because it's very frustrating, and he knows, because he's seen everything going on firsthand. He's also on sick, so, you know, it's certainly, I mean, but this, I do agree with Tucker. I think we should let him speak, but I don't run this committee. So.
Right. You know, I think that ultimately, I hope I didn't come off as rude. Certainly, that wasn't my intention. But to clarify, this is something that we've been working on for a long time. In terms of, I'm pretty much up to date on what's going on. For those legislators that don't know, during the winter time, we needed someplace to bring in DSS, and not employees, citizens, users that are not able to go up on the second, third, and fourth floors. We couldn't have them wait outside anymore, especially if it's out in the cold. So we were able to utilize the historian's office for that time period. With that said, here we are into June, and the space is still being utilized for DSS. There have been ongoing conversations on ways to restore that to the historian's office. And Aileen has been working on it. It's not due to lack of work, certainly on her part. As she said, she just has a lot on her plate. It probably would have helped out a lot to have an operations manager to be able to assist her, but this body ultimately did not approve that. With that said, there are many issues that need to be addressed that we just don't have the staff people to do it at this point in time. You could ask, as Aileen alluded to, you could ask every department head. I'm sure they would have at least one or two things that they would want to be addressed. To have a single department head come up here and advocate for their own interest to this committee is not appropriate at this time. And
Isn't that the department head's role to advocate for their department to their oversight committee? I don't think that's out of line.
It is. If they were coming up here and asking for something that is actively being worked on already, and I said, hey, can you hold off another month until it can be worked on? And they said, no. We would have 30 of the 32 department heads say, okay, I'll wait, as opposed to the two elected department heads that kind of start speaking out of turn and continue to advocate and bring employees up here, right? Obviously, the other one that's elected, well, the sheriff and the DA's office, so, and the treasurer, so 4. There are boundaries here. There are some things that we try to do in a structural fashion. I knew that it was being worked on, and I said this much. And to be frank with you, Tucker, I hope that she does come to the public session of the ledge meeting and inform us of what she is advocating for, but at this committee, that would not happen. And I said as much. So, and to be fair to me, okay, just to be fair to me, I said to Sue that I was in favor of the historian's office being returned to that role. And so I'm with her on this. It's just something that we need to let the process play out just the same as we would with every other county issue that's going on here. Hers is not special. And, I want to say that. Okay, so with that said, before committee closes, I will have any questions. Tim, I see your hand up.
I concur with Tucker that the committee system sometimes is muzzle. And I, as a legislator, want to hear from the department heads if they have a problem with the committee. And your statement saying that Sue should be recognized at the public to be heard. I think Sue, as a chair, is, you know, a countywide elected official. Any official that comes before this board, our full board, should have the privilege of the floor, Mr. Chairman. And, you know, I'll leave it at that. Anybody who's elected countywide, citywide, and they come to this board and they want to speak, it's not the 3-minute public to be heard session. They're to be recognized and acknowledged as a participant in the county.
That is noted. Any other thing from individuals? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Motion by Chris, seconded by Tricia. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. I'll become a committee chair. No, that's fine. Sorry, make the